Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another whiskey review. Today we are going to discuss a release that I look forward to every year, though some of the more recent batches have not quite landed, like batches that came out, let's say, 5 years ago. But this is a batch that we are now on the eighth edition of, and I was very excited to get into this batch, particularly when I saw the stats and the ages that are going into this blend. So today we are going to be talking about the Remus Repeal Batch 8. I have gotten my hands on every single batch of this over the years. One of the things I do look forward to being a big MGP hound, Ross and Squibb for the more modern name. But what we're going to do today is do a review of this bottle, and by the end of it, I'll also have some thoughts and comparisons to more recent batches, such as Remus 5 and Remus 7. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. It's got a little bit of pour there. Let's let that one air out a little bit. I want that one to have a good chance to air out as we discuss. Ooh. Let's pull up the stats here, and we're also going to talk about what is in this blend. So first off, I got this in Ohio, which is state controlled. Typically, everything that we get is at MSRP and is at the standard price for the whole country. Now, with that said, I paid $109 out the door this past weekend, and I have heard from others that they think it is going to be $99 in their area. So keep that in mind. I'm interested to hear about it too in the comments, what this release is in your area, 99 or 109. Proof on this one is 101 proof. Typically, releases in the series have been at 100 proof, though if you go all the way back to batch number 1, I believe that one was 94 proof. So it hasn't always been 100 proof. Sometimes it does vary, and this one happens to be 101. If this were age stated, it would technically be 10 years, but that does give it a little bit of a disservice as we go through what's in the blend. So let's discuss that real quick here. 9% of this blend is a 2007 bourbon, 21% rye mash bill. So implying that it spent its entire time in oak during that period, we are talking about a 17-year bourbon in this blend, encompassing about 9% of the blend. 24% is a 2014 bourbon, that would be 10 years old. And then 67% is a 2014 bourbon as well, 10 years old. And that one's a 36% rye. So 2/3 of the blend are a 10-year, 36% rye. So got some good things going on this blend. Really looks good on paper. Another thing to discuss up front too, before we get into the tasting notes, also keep in mind, when it comes to that 17-year, I do wonder what that 17-year was even at cast strength. If you think about the Remus Gatsby releases, those are cast strength, but 98 proof. And I have a whole lot of Old Scout single barrels behind me from that era that also were typically 97, 98 proof, lower or higher 90s. Even at cast strength. That is just how some of those barrels were back then. So when I do see it at 101 proof, I do wonder how much they even had to proof it down to get it down to that proof. And maybe that plays into some of the other elements as we get into it. But just kind of keep that in mind as we go into this. So now we're going to go through the nose, the palate, finish, then we'll get into the final scores. I'll go through some tasting notes, and then we'll get into those final thoughts. Thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Cheers, everybody. Oh, man. Initial impression on this nose. I think this nose is going to be a crowd pleaser, especially off initial impression. This is almost like the perfect blend of this classic era MGP, say circa 2005 to 2009, and this more modern era. You know, everything kind of taking place after 2013. It's a blend of both of those flavor profiles. What I get up front, let's say from the classic era, is this deep, rich oak but also this lovely dark cherry that then blends perfectly with honey, graham cracker, and ginger notes. And that's what I get from more modern era MGP. So it really is a good blend of those two. Behind that, there is a layer of spices. I'd get into black pepper, clove, and there's a bit of citrus as well. There is some orange that is there if you go digging for it. There's some good amount of citrus, probably from that higher rye mash bill being a good percentage of this. So when it comes to the nose, I think the nose is one of the most impressive elements of this pour. Gave that two thumbs up. Really, really dig this nose. I think you're going to have a really good first impression when you pour this for the first time. All right, let's get into the palate. Cheers again, everybody. Mm, mm. Man, it is rich and oily up front. Once again, going back to don't judge it just being that 101 proof. Rich, oily, and once again, that older cask is doing a whole lot of lifting. It is really coming forward there with this lovely oak and cherry up front. A little bit of like a vanilla cream too. So it's just nice and sweet and inviting up front, especially with that oak balancing it all out. Now, when you get into mid palate, though, mid palate is where it steps off the accelerator a little bit for me. That is where seemingly the 10-year, more modern era MGP takes over, and its flavor profile matches what I expect from more recent releases as well. So there's a lot of honey, there's a lot of graham cracker, there's a lot of ginger, and those notes are mainly what come through. The oak and the cherry kind of get more muted by the time you get to mid palate. Let me do one more sip, see if I find anything else there. No, I think that's it. So when it comes to the palate, gave the palate just a thumbs up. Really like what it's doing initially, but it doesn't play through the entire palate. Now, then we get into the finish. Ooh, let me go one more sip here. Man, with the finish, it does then roar back into the finish. That 17-year shows up again. That lovely oak and cherry really comes center stage. There's even like a little bit of cherry cola that I'm getting right now. And that is mixed in with honey, graham cracker, and ginger yet again. Lovely combination of all of those flavors. Oh man, the ginger just really hangs on towards the end of the finish. Really, really refreshing. It's one of those bourbons that like makes your lips pucker and makes you want to go in for another sip. All right, last one, and let's get into the final scores. Got a bit more citrus on that one too, but I think I called out all the notes that I'm getting on that. Lovely experience through and through, but man, that 9% 17 years doing so much heavy lifting on the finish. Gave the finish two thumbs up, particularly on the back of the flavors. Really, really love what's going on this finish. So then for the final scores, here on this channel, we do have a three-tier scoring system broken down into a flavor score, an experience score, and a value score. Now, the flavor score ended up being one of its strongest components. I really dig all the flavors. Lost a few points from me mid palate, but man, 87.5 is a really strong flavor score. Experience score, yeah, places it does kind of lack a little bit of complexity, or length of the finish was like great, but didn't inspire me to give it a 9. So it kind of lost points, just like little bits there where it got 8s rather than 9s. So I ended up getting an 82 on the experience score. Then the value, I did bring it down to a 9 rather than a 10. You know, the price on the Remus has always shifted like the wind for me, because you get into these eras where Remus is the only one offering 17-year MGP in their blends. I know there are a few other brands that are doing it right now, but it's not something that's very common nor at this price point. So that gives it a bit of value. At the same time, 91% of this is 10-year MGP, and you can find 10-year, 11-year, 12-year single barrels that are cask strength on the shelf today for $85 to $100. So when you're talking about a blend that is costing $109 and it's 101 proof, it always fits kind of weird on the overall profile of the market and where other similar MGP source whiskeys are. And Remus has had this problem with me over the years too. So ended up getting it a 90 rather than 100. It's still got that unique profile with that 17-year in there. So then all in all, that comes to the final score of an 85 out of 100. For rank on the year, this would rank 15th out of 59 reviews done this year. So an upper tier pour for 2024. All time 56 out of 221 for context. So good score all the way around, and it just lost a few points here or there. Now, with the comparison then, if you have followed the Remus series, for me, the top two standouts are Remus 3 and Remus 5. And Remus 5, I think, was the one that a whole lot of people actually got their hands on and fell in love with a few years ago. Now, Remus 6 seemed to drop off a little bit by comparison. Remus 7 was a good step up, but not quite back to where Remus 5 was. So where are we then with Remus 8? I did get to sit down and do a comparison with Remus 7 and Remus 5. Direct comparison to Remus 5, Remus 5 is still king. So don't have your expectations that high. It's good, but it's not that good. I think by comparison, Remus 5 probably scores an 88 to 90, though I haven't laid that official score down on paper. Probably need to do that. And then with the Remus 7, so for me, sipping both of those side by side, I did like the Remus 7 last year. I wasn't overwhelmed by it. And similar stats, actually, on paper. This blend in the Remus 8 feels better constructed than the blend on Remus 7. It just feels more pronounced flavors. They meld together better, just better constructed. So from that standpoint, if you were a fan of Remus 7, this is going to be a step up, in my opinion. And if Remus 7 maybe missed the mark for you, I would still give Remus 8 a chance. I think it's a step up. So that's a little bit of comparison there on what to do if you were in love or had trepidations about prior releases of Remus. I think it fits pretty well between Remus 5 being great, this release, Remus 8 being right in the middle, and then Remus 7 being over here. So hopefully that helps you out on your purchasing decisions. Let me know in the comments if you've had this release, what you thought of it, and if you plan on picking it up. Love to hear from you. So thank you for joining today, Whiskey friends. We'll catch you on the next whiskey review. Goodbye, buddy.
Jeff, just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello again. Oh, Jeffrey, you should just be friends with me. But you have these whiskey friends, and you say hello